Good morning, girls. It's Tuesday.
I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. I solemnly swear that I am up to no good.
So, I'm sorry about missing last week, but I am back now, and I am stealing Miranda's challenge. So I have a book here which I don't think anyone else has read. Like, it's not like a popular book. Maybe someone has. I don't know. But this is a book that I picked up in a used bookstore once, and it's now like one of my favorite books. And so I'm going to read you a passage from the end of this. I'm going to give you a little background on this book. It's called Storm Thief, and it's by Chris Wooding. I got it at a used bookstore somehow. I just picked it up, and so basically the concept is that there's an island called Orcaros, and they have these things called probability storms. Orcaros has been lashed by probability storms, violent tempests that change whatever they touch. When a probability storm hits, streets are rearranged, children are turned to glass, rivers break from their banks, and life suddenly becomes death. Nothing is stable, and everyone is vulnerable. And so, basically, they screw everything up. And the two main characters of this are Rail, who's a guy who's pictured on the front. In a probability storm, he loses a lung, and so he needs a respirator to breathe. And Moa is a girl, and she became left-handed in a probability storm. And so this is kind of their adventures, and the part that I'm going to read to you is very close to the end. So it's them talking to this projection of the scientist from 600 years ago. And so yeah, let's go. For hundreds of years, there was peace and order. Our government ruled with an iron fist, crushing dissension, and we were content. We didn't want anything to corrupt our perfect world. The scene changed, to the interior of a dwelling, breathtakingly splendid and strange. A couple lounged there, their expressions dull, eyes flat and vacant. But in the end, that was the problem, Friend continued. We were so content that we became bored. You see, we're meant to struggle. It's in our blood. We're not supposed to live our lives to a plan. But that's what happened. We piled law upon law, rule upon rule, till the state told us that what we shouldn't do. And none of us really had to think for ourselves at all. We couldn't even be decadent. Anything bad for us was outlawed. We had put ourselves in a prison, and even our jailers didn't realize it. He shook his head sadly. We came to Orcaros long ago to escape the disorder of the world, to build ourselves a society that would be perfect in itself, but we became stagnant. We surrounded ourselves with skimmers so that nobody could get in or out without state approval. We alienated ourselves entirely from the rest of humanity. We didn't want them to taint us. Wait, Moa said, holding up a hand. What do you mean, the rest of humanity? If the rest of humanity is even there anymore, Friend said. It's been 1,000 years since we last contacted any of them, or they us. Moa's leg went weak. You mean there's more? More outside Orcaros? Is it really true? Oh yes, said Friend, with an indulgent smile. So much more. While Rail and Moa were trying to digest this, the scene shifted again, and now they stood at the bottom of a colossal bulb-shaped chamber. Bizarre flying automatons glided above them, building the framework of something massive. The air was cold and tasted of aether. This was our solution to it all, Friend said. Some of us, some of the best scientists and military men, we came up with a plan. We began to build a machine. We told people that it was a new weapon, and they loved the idea of that. But what we were really building was the chaos engine. We were building something that would unleash havoc on the city. It was our masterpiece. We would paint a canvas of the disorder over Orcaros to see what came of it. Why? Moa asked. She was still abuzz with 100 questions, so much so that she didn't know which to ask first. Friend looked at her, his eyes weary. The projector fizzled, and the whole scene flickered and warped for a moment before snapping back into place. We saw what we had become, he said. We were empty, hollow things, mindlessly following rules that we had laid down for ourselves. There was no creativity anymore, no new thought or art, just people living like clockwork. We had no freedom left. We had given it all away, and anything that threatened our precious contentment we destroyed. We were monsters. We needed to start again. Rail and Moa couldn't believe what they were hearing. You made our world this way? Rail asked. Brian nodded solemnly. Perhaps you think this is hell. You're wrong. I lived there, and it was worse than this. They had never heard of hell, but they didn't ask. There was already too much to take in. The picture around them had changed again, and now they saw the fulcrum from the outside. A terrific probability storm was lashing the city, pounding it with rain and sweeping thick veils through the streets. That first probability storm did more than we had ever dreamed it could, he said. It changed everything. It shut down all the power to all of Okeros, and it was 127 years before another storm turned on the old aether generators again. All our knowledge, all our wisdom, was stored in the systems that had become inactive for generations. And by the time they had come back on again, everyone had forgotten how to use them. 127 years is a very long time. There were riots, starvation, terrible wars. The scientists who still remembered the old ways were lost in the chaos. The skimmers would not let anything in or out. We started a new dark age, but that was the way it had to be. We had to begin again, you see. You call that time the fade. You set the revenants on us, said Rail flatly. Yes, Friend replied, but that was an accident. We never meant for the revenants to come. The chaos engine did that. He made a hopeless gesture. Rearranging things wasn't enough. It created an enemy that would match you exactly. There were not many at first, but the harder you tried to wipe them out, the more they came. They were intended to be that way. You needed something to stop you from getting complacent. You needed chaos to stop yourselves from becoming too ordered. To stop you from becoming like we were. You see, total chaos and total order are just as bad as each other. There must be a balance, even if it costs lives. It's cost millions of lives, Rail shouted, sweeping a disgusted hand at the apparition. He took a breath, calmed himself a little. You were right. You were monsters. But nothing is different, Moa cried, seized with a terrible despair at what she had heard. You broke the world, and nothing is different. The Protectorate controls everything in Okeros that the Revenants don't. They still send people like us to the ghettos, or make them disappear. It's just like it was before. Yes, Friend said sadly. Yes, it is. We failed. We hoped that things would turn out differently if we wiped the slate clean. But they have turned out the same. It seems that though we can change our environment over and over, we are still trapped by our nature. And so, if you ever find this book, I would definitely suggest it. It is very good. It made me think a lot. And I'm probably going to start rereading it tomorrow. Alright, so I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory about what this book is about. It's called Storm Thief, and it's by Chris Wooding. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know it was kind of long, but I really like this book. I'll see you tomorrow, Nia.